"She's only a waitress," my sister said at dinner. Then her boss asked for my autograph. The marble floors of Le Bernardin click under my worn sneakers as I follow Maya through the restaurant. She's wearing her power suit, the navy one that cost more than I make in 2 months, and her heels tap out a rhythm of confidence I've never possessed. At least, not in places like this. "Remember what I told you," she whispers, not looking back. "Just smile, nod, and try not to mention the diner." I want to remind her that she's the one who begged me to come tonight. 3 phone calls, 2 guilt trips, and 1 desperate plea about how she really needs me there for moral support. But I know better. Maya doesn't need support from anyone, especially not from her little sister who smells like coffee grounds and has grease stains permanently embedded under her fingernails. This isn't about support. This is about performance. The maitre d' leads us to a corner table where a man in his 50s sits scrolling through his phone. He looks up as we approach, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile practiced and professional. This must be Richard Blackstone, the senior partner Maya's been trying to impress for the past 6 months. "Richard, I'd like you to meet my sister, Sam," Maya says, her voice carrying that particular tone she uses when she's managing something, or someone, she finds embarrassing. I extend my hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Blackstone." His handshake is firm, assessing. The kind of grip that sizes you up in seconds. "Please call me Richard. Maya's told me so much about you." I glance at my sister, wondering exactly what she's shared. Probably not much that would paint me in a favorable light. "I hope it was mostly good things," I say, settling into my chair. The leather is buttery soft, probably worth more than my entire living room set. "Oh, she mentioned you work in food service," Richard says, unfolding his napkin with practiced ease. "That must be challenging." There it is. The polite corporate speak for "I'm sorry your life turned out that way." Maya jumps in before I can respond. "Sam works at Murphy's downtown. It's this little diner that's been around forever. Very authentic." She says the word like it's a disease she's trying not to catch. "How interesting," Richard replies, though his tone suggests it's anything but. "And what do you do there exactly?" "I'm a waitress," I say simply, watching Maya flinch slightly at my directness. She would have preferred something like, "I'm in customer service," or "I work in hospitality." Sam's always been the creative type, Maya adds quickly, as if she needs to explain why her sister ended up in such a disappointing career. "She has these artistic dreams." The way she says dreams makes them sound like a childhood phase I should have outgrown years ago. Like believing in Santa Claus or thinking I could fly. What Maya doesn't know, what nobody knows, is that my dreams aren't just dreams anymore. They're real, breathing things that have taken on a life of their own in the darkness of my small apartment after my shifts end. When the world sleeps, and I finally have space to become who I really am. But here, in this restaurant that costs more per meal than I make in a week, I'm just Sam. The waitress. The disappointment. The sister who didn't quite measure up. "Well, creativity is wonderful," Richard says with the kind of patronizing smile adults give to children who say they want to be astronauts. "It's important to have hobbies." Hobbies. If only he knew. The waiter arrives and Richard orders wine without asking what we prefer. Maya orders the sea base. I choose the chicken, the cheapest thing on the menu, and try to disappear into the burgundy leather of my chair. "So tell me about your latest case," Maya says to Richard, her eyes bright with professional interest. She leans forward slightly, the way she learned in those corporate communication seminars. "I heard Goldman settled out of court, and just like that, I become invisible." They dive into shop talk, mergers, acquisitions, billable hours, while I sit there like a prop in Maya's carefully constructed scene. She needs me here not for who I am, but for who I'm not. The sister, who makes her look successful by comparison. The cautionary tale that validates all her choices. I study Richard while they talk, noting the way his eyes never quite meet mine when he addresses me, how he speaks slightly slower when explaining things he assumes I won't understand. He's not cruel, just conditioned to see people like me as part of the scenery. Background noise in the important conversations. Maya gestures animatedly as she describes her latest project, some diversity initiative her firm is implementing. She uses all the right words: inclusion, equity, systemic change, like she's reading from a progressive corporate handbook. The irony isn't lost on me that she's advocating for lifting up marginalized voices while simultaneously keeping her own sister's voice buried under a mountain of shame and lowered expectations. It's really about authentic representation, she's saying now, her fork paused halfway to her mouth, giving platforms to voices that have been traditionally silenced. I almost laugh. Maya wouldn't recognize an authentic voice if it recited poetry directly into her ear, which, coincidentally, is exactly what happens every night at midnight when thousands of people gather in digital spaces to hear Noir speak. They don't know her face, don't know her real name, don't know she serves coffee and pie to truckers and insomniacs for 40 hours a week. They just know her words. My words. The ones that have been shared across social media platforms, quoted in academic papers, whispered in late-night conversations about pain and resilience and what it means to survive in a world that would rather you disappear. But here, watching Maya perform her version of social consciousness for her boss while treating me like an embarrassing family secret, I keep those words locked away. I nod when appropriate, smile when expected, and play the role she's written for me. The invisible sister. The cautionary tale. The one who's settled for less. Sam's always been so grounded, Maya continues, and I realize she's talking about me again. She really understands regular people in a way that someone like me, with my education and background, might not. Regular people. As if I'm some kind of anthropological specimen, she keeps around to study the habits of the working class. Richard nods thoughtfully. That's valuable perspective. Sometimes we get so caught up in our ivory towers that we forget about the real world. They're talking about me like I'm not sitting right here, like I'm a concept rather than a person. And maybe that's what I've become in Maya's world. Not a sister, but a symbol of everything she's worked so hard to rise above. I take a sip of the wine Richard ordered, tasting notes I don't have the vocabulary to describe, and wonder what would happen if I told them the truth right here, right now. If I quoted the lines that have been reverberating through boardrooms and college campuses for months. If I let them know that the regular person they're dissecting has a voice that reaches farther than Maya's law degree ever could. But I don't.
Not yet.
Instead, I smile and nod and let them continue their performance, all the while knowing that before this night is over, everything Maya thinks she knows about success, about importance, about who deserves to be heard, is going to change. The foundation of her carefully constructed world is about to crack, and I'm going to be the earthquake that brings it all down. But for now, I'm just the waitress at the table. The sister who makes her look good. The voice she's never bothered to hear.
Soon, that's going to change.
While Richard drones on about quarterly profits and Maya pretends to be fascinated, my mind drifts to last night. To the ritual that transforms me from invisible waitress to someone who matters. It starts the same way every evening. I come home to my cramped studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's laundromat, kick off my sneakers, and peel away the smell of grease and disappointment. My feet throb, they always do. Purple bruises bloom across my heels where the cheap shoes bite into my skin. My lower back aches from 8 hours of bending, lifting, smiling at customers who see right through me. In Maya's world, this would be my entire story. The sad sister who peaked in high school and never figured out how to climb higher. But Maya has never seen me at midnight. She's never watched me transform my tiny kitchen table into a sanctuary. Never seen me arrange my notebook, my phone, my ring light, the 3 tools that have changed everything. She doesn't know about the black curtain I hang behind me, or how I've learned to modulate my voice just enough that even my own sister wouldn't recognize it. When the clock strikes 12, Sam the waitress disappears. And Noir is born. Don't you think, Sam? Richard's voice pulls me back to the restaurant. Both he and Maya are looking at me expectantly, waiting for an answer to a question I didn't hear. I'm sorry, what? I ask, feeling heat creep up my neck. Maya's smile tightens. Richard was asking about your perspective on work-life balance. You know, from someone in the service industry. Of course he was. Let's ask the help what she thinks about having to work for a living. Well, I say carefully, I think people underestimate how much energy it takes to be constantly performing. To smile and be pleasant even when you're invisible to most people. To maintain dignity when others assume you don't have any. Something flickers across Richard's face. He's listening now, really listening, in a way he wasn't before. That's actually quite insightful, he says, sounding surprised. Maya laughs, high and nervous. Sam's always been philosophical. Too much time to think during those long shifts, I guess. If only she knew how I spend that thinking time. How every rude customer, every dismissive glance, every moment of being treated like furniture feeds into something bigger. Something that matters. Last Tuesday, a businessman in a $1,000 suit snapped his fingers at me like I was a dog. Called me girl, even though I'm 28. Left a $1 tip on a $40 check. That night, I wrote Salt in the Soil, a poem about what it means to be planted in ground that was never meant to nourish you, but finding a way to grow anyway. Within hours, it had been shared 3,000 times. By morning, it was trending on TikTok. By the end of the week, I was getting messages from college professors asking to use it in their syllabi. Noir's words about surviving systemic neglect were being discussed in boardrooms just like the ones Richard inhabits. Students were quoting her at protests. Her voice, my voice, had become a rallying cry for everyone who'd ever been overlooked, dismissed, or treated as less than human. But here I sit, letting Maya explain my philosophical tendencies, like they're a character flaw. The thing about service work, I continue, unable to help myself, is that you see people at their most honest. When someone thinks you don't matter, they show you exactly who they are. And sometimes, that truth is worth capturing. Capturing how? Richard asks, and there's genuine curiosity in his voice now. Maya jumps in before I can answer. Sam writes a little. Poetry, mostly. It's a nice creative outlet. A nice creative outlet. Like finger painting or scrapbooking. Something harmless and small. She has no idea that last month, Noir's poem about racial profiling was read aloud at a congressional hearing. No idea that 3 universities have reached out asking for speaking engagements, requests I've had to politely decline because nobody knows who Noir really is. No idea that the creative outlet she dismisses so casually has touched more lives than her law degree ever will. Poetry is powerful, Richard says thoughtfully. There's this spoken word artist online, Noir. Have you heard of her? My daughter showed me her work. Absolutely brilliant stuff about race, class, resilience. Her piece about systematic oppression was extraordinary. My heart stops. Actually stops. Maya shakes her head. I don't really follow that kind of thing. Too depressing.
Too depressing.
The words that have helped thousands of people feel less alone in their struggles are too depressing for my sister to engage with. It's not depressing at all, Richard continues. It's hopeful. Empowering. She has this way of taking pain and transforming it into something beautiful. Something that matters. I take a sip of wine to hide my reaction. Richard Blackstone, the man who barely acknowledged my existence 5 minutes ago, just called my work beautiful. Said it matters. Used words Maya has never applied to anything I do. The anonymity is fascinating too, he adds. She never shows her face. Alters her voice. Could be anyone. Your server, your neighbor, the person sitting next to you on the subway. I think that's part of what makes it so powerful. It forces you to listen to the words without your preconceptions getting in the way.
He's right.
That was exactly the point. When people can't see me, they hear me. When they can't dismiss me based on my appearance or my job or my sister's introduction, they actually engage with what I have to say. Maya looks bored. Sounds gimmicky to me.
Gimmicky.
My life's work, my soul poured onto pages and shared with the world, reduced to a marketing trick. But Richard shakes his head. No, it's brilliant. Pure artistry. I'd give anything to meet her. The irony is so thick I could cut it with the steak knife beside my plate. He wants to meet the woman whose voice moves him, whose words he finds profound and necessary. She's sitting 3 feet away from him, being dismissed as just a waitress by her own sister. I wonder what he would say if he knew that Moore serves coffee to truckers for a living. If he discovered that the voice he admires comes from someone he barely considers worth talking to. Soon, I think, Watching Maya roll her eyes at Richard's enthusiasm, he's going to find out. The appetizers arrive. Delicate towers of something I can't pronounce, garnished with microgreens that probably cost more than my hourly wage. Maya cuts into hers with surgical precision, every movement calculated to demonstrate her sophistication. "You know, Richard," she says, dabbing her mouth with a cloth napkin, "I've been thinking about our conversation last week, about the firm's new diversity initiative." Here we go. Maya's about to perform her favorite act, the enlightened progressive who understands social justice. I've seen the show before, usually at family gatherings where she needs to prove she's evolved beyond our working class roots. "Yes, the Voices for Change campaign," Richard nods, cutting his food with equal precision. "We're trying to authentically represent underrepresented communities in our client testimonials." "Exactly," Maya beams, warming to her topic. Authentic representation is so crucial. We can't just pay lip service to diversity. We need to actually understand the lived experiences of people from different backgrounds. The irony is so thick it's practically visible. Maya, who hasn't spoken to our neighbors in 5 years, who crosses the street to avoid homeless people, who just last Christmas told our cousin Maria that her accent made her sound unprofessional, is lecturing about understanding lived experiences. It's about amplifying voices that have been historically silenced, she continues, using the exact phrase I heard her practicing in the bathroom mirror before we left. Giving platforms to authentic stories of struggle and resilience. Richard nods approvingly. The research shows that consumers are drawn to genuine narratives. They want to hear from real people who've overcome real challenges. Real people, like the ones Maya pretends don't exist when they're sitting across from her at dinner. The challenge, Maya says, leaning forward conspiratorially, is finding those authentic voices. People who've actually lived through hardship but can articulate it in a way that resonates with our client base. She pauses, and I see it coming like a slow-motion car crash. The smile that spreads across her face isn't kind, it's predatory. She's spotted an opportunity to demonstrate her point while simultaneously putting me in my place. "Actually," she says, turning toward me with theatrical casualness, "this is my sister, Sam. She's only a waitress, but she's lived through exactly the kind of authentic struggle we're talking about." The words hit like a slap. She's only a waitress. Not my sister works in food service or even my sister is a waitress. She's only a waitress. As if that's all I am, all I'll ever be, all I'm worth. She has these artistic dreams, Maya continues, her voice dripping with condescension. Writes poetry about her experiences. Very raw, very real. Richard looks at me with renewed interest, but it's not the kind that feels good. It's the interest of someone examining a specimen. The poor waitress with her quaint artistic aspirations. How authentic, how tragic, how useful for a diversity campaign. "That's wonderful," he says, and I can hear him already cataloging me. Potential testimonial subject, possible focus group participant, walking example of overcome adversity. "What kind of poetry?" Maya answers before I can. "Oh, you know, the usual struggle narrative. Hardship, perseverance, finding hope in dark places. Very on brand for what we're looking for." She's reducing my life to marketing copy. Every late-night writing session, every word I've bled onto paper, every moment I've transformed pain into something beautiful, it's all just on-brand content to her. "The working-class perspective is so valuable," Richard adds, and I want to scream. I'm sitting right here. I can speak for myself. But Maya isn't done. She never is when she's found a good angle to work. "The best part," she says, her smile sharpening, "is that Sam really understands her place in the world. She doesn't have any illusions about climbing the ladder or changing the system. She just accepts her role and finds beauty in the struggle. It's actually quite noble. Noble. Like I'm a saint for accepting my lot in life instead of fighting for better. Like contentment with scraps is a virtue instead of a tragedy." Something snaps inside me. Maybe it's the wine, maybe it's the way Richard is nodding along like I'm a sociology case study, or maybe it's just 10 years of Maya's condescension finally reaching their limit. "You know what's really authentic?" I say, my voice cutting through their comfortable assumptions. When the system plants you in soil that was never meant to nourish you, but you find a way to grow anyway. The words hang in the air. Maya's fork pauses halfway to her mouth. Richard's head tilts slightly, like he's trying to place something familiar. That's beautiful, Richard says slowly. Very poetic. It reminds me of something. He trails off, his brow furrowing in concentration. Maya laughs, but there's an edge to it now.
See?
I told you she was creative, always coming up with these little phrases. Little phrases. As if the line that launched 1,000 conversations about systemic oppression is just a little phrase I improvised over appetizers. No, seriously, Richard says, still frowning. That specific image, soil that wasn't meant to nourish, but growing anyway. I've heard that before. Recently. My heart starts beating faster. He's so close to connecting the dots. So close to realizing that the authentic voice he's been searching for has been sitting across from him all night, dismissed and diminished by her own sister. Maya's still laughing, oblivious to the shift in energy. Sam's always been good with words. Too bad, she never figured out how to monetize it, right? But Richard isn't laughing anymore. He's staring at me with a new kind of intensity, like he's seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me. Salt in the soil, he says quietly, and my blood turns to ice. That's from Salt in the Soil, the noir piece that went viral last month. The silence that follows is deafening. Richard's fork clatters onto his plate. The sound echoes through our corner of the restaurant like a gunshot, sharp and final. His eyes, which moments ago held polite indifference, are now locked on mine with laser focus. Salt in the soil, he repeats, his voice barely above a whisper. You just quoted Salt in the Soil. Maya looks between us, her confident smile flickering like a candle in the wind. She doesn't understand what's happening, doesn't recognize the seismic shift that's occurring right in front of her designer-clad eyes. What's salt in the soil? She asks, trying to regain control of a conversation that's suddenly spinning beyond her grasp. But Richard doesn't answer her. He's staring at me like I've just performed a magic trick, like I've pulled something impossible out of thin air. His breathing has changed, shorter, sharper, like he's trying to solve a puzzle that's rearranging itself in real time. That poem, he continues, his voice gaining strength, about surviving systemic neglect. About finding strength in spaces that weren't designed for you to flourish. It became a rallying cry. My daughter has it printed out and taped to her dorm room wall. My throat feels tight. Of all the ways I imagined this moment might unfold, and I've imagined it countless times during those long shifts at Murphy's, I never pictured it happening like this. With Maya sitting there looking confused and slightly irritated that she's no longer the center of attention. You quoted it perfectly, Richard says, leaning forward now. Word for word. But that's impossible unless... He trails off, but I can see his mind working. I can watch him connecting to that Maya doesn't even know exist. Maya laughs, high and nervous. Richard, you're scaring me.
What are you talking about?
Noir, he says simply. The spoken word poet I was telling you about. The one who's been taking social media by storm with her pieces about race, class, resilience. Okay, but what does that have to do with? Your sister just quoted her most famous work.
Exactly. Perfectly.
Like she wrote it herself. The words hang in the air between us, heavy with implication. Maya's face goes through a series of expressions, confusion, annoyance, and then something that might be the first stirring of understanding. That's crazy, she says, but her voice lacks conviction. Sam doesn't even use social media. She barely knows how to work her smartphone. The assumption stings because it's so casual, so automatic. Maya has decided I'm technologically incompetent based on what? My job? My clothes? The fact that I don't perform my digital life for her approval? Richard isn't listening to Maya anymore. His entire attention is focused on me, and for the first time tonight, I feel truly seen. Not as Maya's disappointing sister, not as a representative of the working class, but as myself. Wait, he says suddenly, his eyes widening. Your voice. When you said that line, there was something about your inflection, your cadence. He pulls out his phone with shaking hands. I watch him open his music app, scroll through saved files, and tap play on something I recognize immediately. It's Midnight Reflections, the poem I recorded 3 weeks ago about finding identity in the spaces between who you are and who the world expects you to be. My own voice fills the space around our table, altered by the modulation software, but still unmistakably mine, if you know what to listen for. The words I wrote in my tiny kitchen at 2 a.m., the pain I transformed into power, the truth I wrapped in metaphor and set free into the digital universe. Richard's hand is pressed to his mouth. His eyes dart between the phone and my face, back and forth, like he's watching a tennis match played with revelations. Maya is frowning now, really listening to the recording for the first time. She sounds familiar, she admits reluctantly. She sounds like you, Richard whispers, his gaze never leaving mine. Oh my God, you sound just like Noir. The confession sits right there on the tip of my tongue. 3 little words that would change everything. I am her. But something holds me back. Maybe it's the years of being invisible, of having my voice dismissed and diminished. Maybe it's the fear that even now, even with the evidence literally playing from his phone, they won't believe me. Or maybe it's because I want to savor this moment, the look of dawning recognition on Richard's face, the way Maya's world is starting to crack around the edges, the delicious irony of being discovered while she's still trying to explain away my relevance. I would give anything to meet her, Richard says, echoing his words from earlier. But this time, they're not hypothetical. This time, he's looking directly at me when he says them. Maya's laugh sounds forced now, brittle. Come on, Richard. You can't seriously think that Sam is some famous internet poet. She works at Murphy's Diner. She lives above a laundromat. As if those facts somehow disqualify me from having thoughts worth hearing. As if my zip code determines the value of my voice. But Richard is shaking his head slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Location doesn't determine talent, he says quietly. Pain doesn't respect property values. And truth can come from anywhere. He reaches across the table and gently touches my hand. Are you her? The question floats between us, loaded with possibility and consequence. Maya holds her breath. The restaurant hums around us. And I realize that this is it, the moment where I step out of the shadows I've been hiding in, not just from the world, but from my own sister. The moment where I stop being just a waitress and become who I really am. I look at Richard's expectant face, then at Maya's confused expression, and something inside me finally breaks free. Not breaks apart, breaks free. Like a bird that's been caged so long it forgot it had wings. Yes, I say simply. I am her. Maya's fork drops. Actually drops, clattering against her plate with a sound that seems to echo forever. That's impossible, she breathes, but even as she says it, I can see doubt creeping into her eyes. You're just a waitress? I finish for her. Just your sister with the artistic dreams? Just the one who never figured out how to monetize her talent. Richard is staring at me, with something approaching awe. Prove it, he says softly, not in challenge, but in wonder. Please, say something, anything. I close my eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar transformation begin. The same shift that happens every night at midnight when I step into my power. When I become more than what people expect, more than what they can see. When I open them again, I'm not Sam the waitress anymore. I'm Noir. They built cages out of minimum wage and called it opportunity. I begin, my voice dropping into the rhythm that has captivated thousands. They painted prison bars with the promise of paying your dues and told us to be grateful for the view. Richard's breath catches. These aren't published lines. They're new, flowing from the same well that's sustained me through every late-night writing session. They gave us uniforms instead of dignity, tips instead of living wages, and wondered why we still dared to dream beyond their small expectations. Maya's face has gone pale. She recognizes something now, not the words, but the voice. The sister she thought she knew dissolving before her eyes. We became masters of the smile that costs nothing to give, but everything to maintain. We learn to make ourselves small enough to fit into their narrow definitions of who deserves to be heard. The words keep coming, raw and unfiltered. I don't need my ring light or my black curtain or the protection of anonymity. This is who I am, who I've always been beneath the surface. But here's what they never understood. You can't cage lightning. You can't minimum wage a soul. You can't tip your way out of the debt you owe to human dignity. Richard has his hand pressed to his mouth, tears actually forming in his eyes. Around us, other diners have started to turn, drawn by something they can't quite name, but can definitely feel. We are not your inspiration porn. We are not your bootstrap fairy tales. We are not the noble poor finding contentment in crumbs. My voice is rising now, filling the space around us with power that's been building for years. We are the voices you try to silence, singing anyway. We are the dreams you called impossible, dreaming anyway. We are the change you said could never come, coming anyway. A server near the next table has stopped moving entirely, her tray forgotten in her hands. The manager has appeared at the edge of the dining room, not to stop me, but to listen. So, when you ask us to be grateful for the scraps, remember this. We were never meant to be your footnotes. We were meant to be the whole damn story. The silence that follows is different from before. This isn't the awkward quiet of social discomfort. This is the profound hush that follows truth. The kind of silence that changes things. Richard is the first to break it. "Oh my God," he whispers. "It's really you. You're really her." Maya is shaking her head, still trying to process what just happened. I don't understand. How is this possible? When did you? How long have you been? 2 years, I tell her, my voice returning to its normal register. 2 years of writing at night after my shifts. 2 years of sharing my truth with strangers who heard me when my own family couldn't. But why didn't you tell me? The question comes out small, wounded. When? I ask gently. When would I have told you? Between you explaining to people that I'm only a waitress? During one of your lectures about finding my place in the world? Or maybe while you were using my struggles as talking points for your diversity campaigns? She opens her mouth to argue, then closes it. For the first time in years, Maya has nothing to say. Richard reaches into his jacket and pulls out his phone, opening his notes app with reverent fingers. Would you mind? He holds out his phone to me, and I see pages and pages of saved poems, screenshots of my posts, quotes from my work. You want me to sign your phone? I say, and it's not quite a question. I know it sounds crazy, but my daughter, she's a freshman at Howard, and she writes your quotes on everything. She says, Noir saved her life during her darkest moment. When she wanted to quit school, quit everything, she heard Midnight Reflections, and it gave her strength to keep going. His voice is thick with emotion. You gave my daughter her voice back. The least I can do is ask for your autograph. I take the phone. This man who barely acknowledged my existence 2 hours ago now treating me like I hung the moon. The irony isn't lost on me, but as I sign Noir across his phone case, I realize something has shifted forever. Maya is staring at her hands. The sister she dismissed, the voice she never heard, the dreams she called impossible. All of it real, all of it successful, all of it happening right under her nose. The revolution she never saw coming was sitting across from her all along. I hand Richard his phone back, my signature gleaming across the case in silver ink borrowed from his expensive pen. The same name Maya once told me would never mean anything to anyone. The same name that's now trending on social media platforms she uses daily, but somehow never connected to her own sister. Thank you, Richard says, clutching the phone like it's a sacred relic. This means more than you know. My daughter is going to lose her mind. Maya finally finds her voice, though it comes out cracked and uncertain. I still don't understand. How long has this been going on? 2 years, I repeat. Every night after my shifts at Murphy's. While you were climbing your corporate ladder, I was building my own. She shakes her head slowly. But the views, the followers, the impact Richard was talking about, that's not possible. You're just a waitress? I finish. Living above a laundromat? Working for tips? The words hang between us, exposing every assumption she's built her worldview on. Maya's face cycles through emotions, disbelief, embarrassment, something that might be the beginning of shame. The diversity campaign, she whispers suddenly. Oh God. I was talking about finding authentic voices, and you were sitting right there. I was sitting right there. I confirm. Like I've been sitting right there for years while you explained to people why my life didn't matter. Richard is watching this exchange with growing understanding. The pieces are clicking into place. Maya's condescension, my quiet acceptance, the family dynamics that let talent hide in plain sight. Actually, he says, turning to Maya with a new coolness in his voice, this gives me an idea for the campaign. Maya straightens, desperate to regain professional footing. Yes, absolutely. Sam could be perfect for testimonials, focus groups. No, Richard interrupts. Not Sam. Noir. The distinction lands like a slap. Maya's mouth opens, then closes. We've been looking for authentic voices to represent marginalized communities, Richard continues, his executive mind clearly racing. But what we really need is someone who can speak to the experience while also having proven reach and influence. Someone who already has a platform.
He turns to me.
Noor has over 500,000 followers across platforms. Your work has been shared by celebrities, quoted in academic papers, featured in major media outlets. You're not just an authentic voice, you're an influential one. I can see the wheels turning in his mind. The same man who dismissed me as potential testimonial material 30 minutes ago is now recognizing me as someone who could elevate his company's entire campaign. We'd be honored to partner with you, he says formally. Not as a subject, but as a collaborator, a featured artist. We're talking TED Talks, keynote speeches, maybe even a book deal through our publishing contacts. Maya's face goes through another series of transformations. She's watching the sister she relegated to background character status become the star of her own professional world. Of course, we'd want to discuss terms, Richard continues. Speaking fees, creative control, representation. This isn't about using your story. This is about platforming your voice. Speaking fees, creative control, representation. Terms Maya has never needed to consider for me because she never thought I'd be in a position to negotiate them. I'm interested, I say calmly, but I have conditions. Name them, Richard replies immediately. Full creative control over any content featuring my work. No editing, no sanitizing, no corporate speak. If you want a Noir's voice, you get it unfiltered.
Done.
And I want to be involved in the selection process for other featured voices. Real representation means more than one token story. Absolutely. Maya is staring at me like I'm a stranger, which I suppose I am. The sister she thought she knew, quiet, accepting, content with crumbs, never existed. I was always this person. She just never bothered to look. There's one more thing, I add. I want Maya removed from the project. The words fall into absolute silence. Maya's face goes white. Sam, she starts, but I hold up a hand. Noir, I correct. And it's not personal, it's professional. Someone who thinks authentic struggle is too depressing and dismisses marginalized voices as gimmicky probably shouldn't be heading up diversity initiatives. Richard nods slowly. That's actually a fair point. Maya looks between us, finally understanding the magnitude of what's happening. The sister she brought here to demonstrate her own success has just cost her the biggest project of her career. I didn't mean, she begins weakly. Yes, you did. I say gently. You meant exactly what you said, about my dreams being unrealistic, about me knowing my place, about being only a waitress. I stand up, smoothing down my thrift store dress, the same dress Maya suggested I change out of because it wasn't restaurant appropriate. Thank you for dinner, I tell Richard, extending my hand. And for the opportunity. I'll have my people call your people. I pause, savoring the moment. I have people now. As I walk toward the exit, I hear Richard's voice behind me. Maya, I think we need to talk. Outside, the city lights blur into streams of possibility. My phone buzzes with notifications. Someone has recorded part of my impromptu performance and posted it online. Hashtag Inwar is already trending. Tomorrow, I'll still have to work my shift at Murphy's. But tonight, for the first time in my life, Maya will have to explain to someone why her sister matters. The revolution wasn't televised. It was served with dinner.